Everybody, July 8th, 2025, and I'm here with your nightly watch list video. Okay, so obviously you guys know today was just a day of squats. You're either the haves or the have-nots, the names that are grinding higher. Some of the Ubers hanging in there incredibly well. Palantir today, a day where it held in there really well. Nvidia held in there really well. MU held in there really well. But then you had the other side of the coin today. Toast got absolutely slammed. Shopify slammed. And it was just kind of a mixed bag of action. Right, some of the more speculative stuff, Oklo, just kind of picked up where it left off on its downtrend, rejecting the 20 simple moving average today. And the gold stocks, not pretty at all. And during the stream, I said, when you can't bounce like this, even if silver is bouncing, if the underlying stocks cannot bounce, then you have a big clue that it's very likely that silver has continuation lower. Just my guess. Unless the underlying stocks, and think about it like this, if the underlying stocks were all flying today, your AG, your CDE, your WPM, your NEM, your etc., PAAS, the reason for that would be silver's acting really well. When the underlying stocks get crushed, and then even silver has, Monday a bit of a, kind of a dump, pick back up, and then a bit of a dump today, pick back up. When none of the underlying stocks are bouncing, whether it's a KGC, and this is supremely ugly action on a big pickup in volume. When I see something like AG, when I see something like WPM, and you see no bounce, effectively a close on the lows, more times than not, and this is pretty much true for any asset, anything you might be watching. It's like if you had watched a bunch of semiconductors kind of close on the low, but you just had a few of them that maybe held the SMH up. If you have too many of the names underneath the surface acting poorly, that really does speak volumes for the group. And today, the gold stocks, silver stocks do not look good. I've been saying it for a little bit. Silver is way more crowded than gold, but really gold's been acting even weaker than silver. I couldn't exactly tell you why, but we are closing now multiple days underneath the 50 simple moving average. So we'll see what happens from here. But any like meaningful little pops in like an AG or a KGC, I will actually be potentially looking to short those names for some follow through to the downside. There are a few other things. I do like a SoFi, but this just got way too ahead of itself. Kind of a nasty close. Would definitely, consider possibly shorting this as well. And these are really just trades, not looking to stay in love with anything on the short side right now. The market is still in an uptrend, and I haven't been able to get traction on the long or the short side, outside of like Circle or ARC, or sorry, Circle, a CCL or ARC. So, I don't want to get too stubborn, but when I start seeing a bunch of faltering action, similar to how we did in like a Shopify today, I just think it's good to kind of throw your cautious hat on and just see if you can gain some traction on the short side if the market's forgiving. And here's the thing: the market hasn't even really pulled back at all. Very tight action today. Where yes, it looks like it's kind of falling for a moment, but then just hangs in there. Incredibly tight action. Nothing wrong with it all. All we've done is hardly close below your 5 simple moving average, still above your 10, still above your 20. So in terms of, all the moving averages still trending up, they are. So, nothing wrong in that regard. And there are still some nice setups, which we'll continue to go through. But I do want to kind of start to say to myself, okay, what's starting to show relative weakness? What are things that are a bit crowded? And then maybe what needs a little bit more time. Speaking of things that need a little bit more time, I think my entire feed on X is bullish crypto. And while I like crypto, I think the setup is really nice, and I am 100% having IBIT on watch for a long. I really don't care to short this right now. Over 63 bucks, excuse me, over $63 is where I'd be watching this for a long. Super tight day today. So again, maybe are these just higher lows, being put in here, and maybe we can watch it even again over today's highs, over 62 as a small little starter, and then over 63, for the full position. I think so. Again, I don't want to just be bear something that's holding up really well. But boy, I think my entire feed is looking at this. And by the way, this would be like the most telegraphed long on planet Earth, where everybody thinks it's gonna work perfectly. Everybody's waiting for the breakout. Everybody's got the 111 spot marked on their charts. And everybody thinks this chart is bullish. So before we go ahead and think that it's going to be that easy, not something that I would necessarily short, but something that I'm kind of keeping back of mind. If it works and IBIT gets over 63 bucks, happy to buy it. But if we start to fail and break down from there, and really the reality here is we're getting a lot of volatility around pivots. Normally I want my pivots to act something like ARC, right? Where it's like you have your clean pivot and then you get your breakout right from that pivot and you're just off to the races. You get your pivot in a CCL and you're just off to the races, right? That's what I prefer. Obviously, nothing is always that easy and it's been kind of a pain in the ass, but this isn't a time to start, trying to do anything that you don't normally do. Again, be a little bit patient. Know that things are kind of volatile around pivots. Size things down. Look for dips against ascending moving averages is probably the way to go. But I'm pretty sure everybody and their mother is bullish Bitcoin on my feed, and I don't know that it's going to be just that easy, to be completely honest with you. Anyway, kind of moving forward, I still have my eyes obviously on Futu. I didn't want to chase a gap up. We're already would have been chasing this thing. I wanted 127, and I was kind of hoping we would just like get to that level today, and then maybe be breaking out tomorrow. But of course, you get to that level, you're having to buy a 3.5%, 4% gap up, and then you get a little bit. But again, knowing this market, we probably gap down. It ends up back at 127, and then maybe we can look for it against that level in the coming day or two. Shopify, obviously, we already talked about. Disgusting volatility. Do we find support and maybe just undercut this 20, find support all the way at the rising 5106? I think that would be, pretty good, in my opinion, for kind of some low risk spot to get long in still a quote unquote bull market. ANET, basically at the highs of the move today, which I really love to see. This thing has gotten just above its 50, or held its 50 simple moving average once, twice, got above the 200, is starting to flag pretty neatly here. We'll go ahead and keep this thing on watch over 103.50 going forward. Excuse me. Circle, really like the action today. We got over this 194 pivot and we pushed out yesterday, and then today it kind of felt like the market may have been holding it back. I don't know if the market's going to take it lower. I really don't know what the market's going to do with these recent IPO names. Obviously, a CoreWeave was pretty heavy today, especially going into the close. Kind of feels like we might be trying to unwind a little bit more. Probably would not be surprised with something back down into the mid 130s. I mean, we did just go from 30 bucks all the way to 180. Kind of insane, if you ask me. So, I still like Circle. I still think it looks pretty dang good. If Circle goes down to work, my expectation would probably be, something like Coin is working as well. Maybe Bitcoin's working as well. Anything stable coin related. IBIT, another one, obviously we just talked about, over 63 bucks. Pretty clean and obvious. Nice little flat pivot. CDE, nasty action here in silver. Any real strong moves up for silver. These names did not respond well today. I will be watching for any kind of weakness and potential continued move to the downside. Remember, silver is crowded in terms of COT data. So, most small players, small and large speculators, aka the people who lose most often in the market, are long silver and gold. In particular, more silver than gold. So not really bullish silver, more bullish gold, if anything. And then coincidentally, gold's the thing that's actually been weaker. Surprise, it's never as easy as it looks. AG, obviously, super nasty action. We already talked about that one. WPM, super nasty action as well. Love the action in Palantir, obviously still building higher lows, still holding the 50. If this thing can just finish tightening out, finish building the right hand side of its chart, I think this thing looks pretty interesting, but obviously has this super ugly, massive distribution bar. I might just want to be patient on this thing for a few weeks, but not taking it off the radar. I love the way semiconductors are acting. Love what CRDO is doing here. Yes, it's still a bit extended from the 50, so don't really want to get involved in this thing just yet. But yes, this thing is starting to build out a pretty nice and clean high type flag. AMD, another one, reminds me a little bit more of MU, where you get this big move off the lows, you kind of just pull into the 20, and then you're starting to maybe U-turn here. MU did something very similar, right? Makes a big move, pulls into the 20. I talked about it on last night's watch list video. It did get over its 10 simple moving average. Really nice to see. Super, super move there today. We'll see if these things have a little bit more left in them. A-Lab, I mean, at this point, it very well could just be a laggard, but this is, a bull flag. I don't love, this big distribution, big distribution, big distribution, big distribution, and some more distribution. So this chart is going to have to show some power and soon. Otherwise, it's kind of a laggard, and there's a ton of distribution on there. SMCI is another one that actually looks a whole lot better than A-Lab, right? You had this little flat base in here, and then now you've got this little bull flag cooking. We'll see if SMCI wants to continue. Probably one that I'm even more interested in than A-Lab, but one that I will kind of keep in the back of mind. And then ARC is another one, has this little high type flag going. Ideally, some more digestion as the 50 catches up. The 50 is now above my average, which is always a pretty nice feeling. Just hanging out straight above the 20. I don't have to do anything with this one, which is really, really nice to see. And then obviously, the IWM has been performing pretty dang well recently, finally back above the 200. So, it kind of feels like the IWM wants to continue higher. We shall see. It is indeed a bull market, but it's a damn choppy one. Today, energy stocks led by a mile. I think it was the XOP ETF. Yeah, the XOP ETF. Guys, you can just look at the XOP, get this ugly down bar, you get this basing, big up move today. I could find a gazillion moves that look just like this. Ugly down bar, consolidation, big up move today. HES, ugly down bar, consolidation, huge up move today. CVX, ugly down bar, consolidation, big up move today. XOM, ugly down bar, consolidation, big up move today. So it's funny because I've told you guys, some of you guys who can remember, sometimes things will set up together. It's the same thing when we were talking about banks, when we were talking about JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Interactive Broker, Schwab. These things look identical. Goldman Sachs, they look identical because this isn't me and you and your friends and Aunt Susie buying these things and moving them. It's institutions. So when you start to see a bunch of stuff that looks very similar in terms of very recent price action, that's because it's a handful of institutions that are driving price down. It's a handful of institutions that are driving price up. So when I see things that are setting up together, and that could potentially be oil and gas stocks going forward, again, I really don't have a dog in the fight. I could care less. But they're definitely in the back of my mind. You guys remember a few weeks ago, we had MPC on the watch list down here in the 165s. Of course, it's now 180. Super, super, super slow. And you would have also have had to have dealt with, a quote unquote ugly down bar. This thing held the 20 perfectly, and just has been in an uptrend ever since. New highs here. So new high for the move. And definitely took out those June highs where, crude oil spiked and then dumped. MPC did not care. VLO did not care. PSX did not care. So there are a few stocks that are at new highs for the move. Those kind of feel like your leaders. And then there's a few stocks that are a little bit lagging behind, but that are quickly playing catch up. And, Hess is one of those, even BP, a bit more sloppy, but it's one of those. PR is another one of those. So nice to see that there are so many names that look identical. Guys, sometimes those are the easiest trades in the world because you're just aligning yourself with institutions. So if you can Find a really tight spot against an ascending moving average, or you can find a nice little daily setup where it's a flat pivot or a little flag or a little pullback or whatever the hell it is that you're looking for to manage risk from. But then the whole basket is doing the same thing. You get the confirmation because the whole basket is working, and there's institutions driving that move, similar to how silver and gold stocks move today. Those are institutions just go ahead and offloading their positions, and then even when silver bounced, even when gold bounced like a little bit, these names stayed super heavy, and because they're just not trying to own them. So we'll see. It kind of leads me to believe that silver and gold are probably going to go for a bigger rest. I could easily be wrong, but they're definitely moving together, right? There's a reason energy and oil and gas stocks are all up as a group today, and then there's a reason why the group for gold and silver were down today. So always pay attention to that. Those are clues in the sand that you need to pay attention to. As I'd say, they're like footsteps in the sand, and you can see them. They're really visible. You just got to kind of follow the footsteps, get in where you fit in, find a low risk spot, and we'll continue to look for that. Anyway, appreciate you guys as always. I will see you guys bright and early in the morning. Cheers.